Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see this.
Last week, I think we finished on natural monopoly last time, innit?
Yeah, I think so.
There's not much left of this document, so let's just try to finish off, and then we can move on to labor markets. You said you need help in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's calm. Yeah, labor market is a bit tricky, but as soon as you get your head around this, all right.
Yep.
What is that? What you're doing in school now?
No, it's a topic that our teacher set as home learning, but she didn't go over it
She's not gonna
properly. Do you know
actually
what I
teach
mean?
you.
Yeah.
Did I send you the document for that?
Um, I'm not
Can't
sure.
remember. All right,
Not sure.
I'll send it anyway in the chat, and in your own time. Like I've got all the notes in your own time. You can also read that as well, but I'll go for it anyway.
Yeah, all right.
All right, monopolistic competition. You've done all the different types of competition and the market structures.
Yeah.
All right, let's just quickly go over it. So characteristics, probably already know. It's obviously got more market power than firms in perfect competition, but now there's product differentiation, so goods are not homogeneous,
Yeah.
but the goods are only slightly different. There's only small scale. It's not very different compared to like monopolies and oligopolies.
Yeah.
The fact that they have product differentiation automatically allows them to set prices, which makes them a price maker rather than a price
Price
taker.
taker. Yeah.
So many
Wait,
buy
hold on.
themselves. Yeah.
I thought they were price taker, the firms.
The monopolistic competition, they're price makers. So
Oh.
that's why you see the demand curve is downward sloping like a monopoly.
Yeah, but isn't it just slightly downwards sloping, because
Mm,
shouldn't it be elastic?
I don't know, to be honest. Maybe is that what they taught you?
Yeah, that's what they taught me, that as you keep going, the higher the monopoly power, the more inelastic um the AR demand curve becomes.
Okay, so all right. So if that's what they taught you, then just stick to that then.
Yeah.
What example did you did EXO on it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
All right, that's fine. There's a different example, like teach like different degree to stuff like.
Yeah.
So, but this stuff counts anyway, and whatever you said, that's probably correct too if your teacher taught you it.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it is downward sloping, and we have a short run and a long run impact. So obviously, it's basically like perfect competition, where in the short run,
They make super long
yeah, they
profits.
make super normal profits, but except we're looking at like kind of like a monopoly diagram, and then as firms enter the market, then we start to make long run profits, which is just normal profit. Yeah,
Yeah.
you just draw these diagrams. They might have shown you a bit different diagrams. Some people do that, but you can also draw these. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Do you know if
Yeah.
a question asks um explain why some oh no, I know the answer. I get it. I was just gonna ask what if a question asks explain why some market structures in the long run they make normal profits, and it's because there's low barriers to entry, more firms can come in,
Yeah.
and yeah.
So anything
Yeah.
that can let their firms come in, which is basically looking at how contestable the market is. Basically, the
Yeah.
more contestable it is, the easier it is for firms to get in and steal some of the supernormal profits.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of efficiencies, hasn't really got much efficiencies. In the short run, it did have a bit of efficiency because it made supernormal profit, but we always want to look at the final impact. In the long run, it's not allocatively efficient
Yeah.
because price is bigger than marginal cost or demand is not equal to supply.
What's allocative efficiency again?
So
It's MC is equal to AR, isn't it?
allocative efficiency is where P is equal to MC at this point here.
Yeah.
MC equals to AR isn't anything. It's MC equal to MR is profit maximization here.
Oh, they taught us that MC is equal to AR is allocative efficiency.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you can say MC equal to AR, or I say demand equal to supply because MC is equal to supply as well. So yeah, so it's not allocatively efficient, meaning there's not people are not like fully satisfied.
Yeah.
Yeah, productive efficiency. It's not efficient as they're not producing at the lowest point of average cost, so they're not exploiting economies of scale.
Yeah.
Dynamic
In
efficiency.
what market structure is there like productive efficiency?
I believe it's in perfect competition.
Right.
Yeah, this one here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
This, so producing at the bottom point.
Yeah.
Dynamic efficiency in the long run, there are only normal profits made and wasn't very sustainable in the short run. So no investments can be made.
What's dynamic if like what's the definition of it? Like if I was asking that exam.
So dynamic efficiency is the process by which you can lower your long run costs. I mean, yeah, lowering your long run costs, and some people do that through using their supernormal profits to invest in better technology to lower their costs. So dynamic efficiency is about
Oh,
lowering long run costs.
in for us it said that dynamic efficiency is when when the resources are allocated
Mhm.
efficiently over like a long period
Period
of
of
time.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's handy to know both of them,
So lower,
both of the meanings, right?
yeah. So it's basically the same thing. Lowering cost in economics is basically becoming more efficient.
Yeah.
Right, oligopoly. How are you with oligopolies?
Yeah, oligopoly. I'm alright with oligopoly.
All right. Did they teach you game theory on that?
Yeah, they did, but like how I don't know how to like apply that in exams and stuff. Like
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I understand. Now I got essays on it and stuff that I can send you guys.
yeah,
But anyway, oligopolies, few large dominant firms, high barriers to entry and exit, product differentiation, so they're price maker, they're
yeah,
interdependent. You know what that means?
yeah. Like if one firm makes a like price change or something, the other firms will
Yeah, they're
it will
likely to
affect the other
react.
firms.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what price rigidity is?
No.
So it's basically like because they're interdependent, they tend to have they tend to stick to one price. It's
Oh,
kind
yeah.
yeah,
That's where the king demand firm comes
yeah,
in,
the
isn't it?
king demand curve stuff. They'd have a lot of non-price and price competition. For example, non-price competition is like advertising, brand image. Price competition is like having price wars where they like
Yeah.
undercut each other in prices.
I thought they only have non-price competition, but they have both in it.
Yeah, they can have both as well. I mean, it's not a
Yeah,
very smart idea. For
yeah,
example, like if you look at like newspapers and stuff like that, they used to have lot of like price competition where a newspaper companies wanted to have the most market share, and the one way they would compete is through like undercutting each other's prices. So newspapers almost became free at some points.
yeah, yeah.
Firms profit maximize but look for market share in other ways. Yeah. So this is the kink demand curve. I have a really good video on kink demand curve and game theory that I can just show you. But I don't know how
Just like the basic outline of it. Is it that like from the sticky price, um if you increase the price, your
yeah,
revenue falls because it's elastic.
yeah.
And if you decrease the price, your revenue falls because it's inelastic.
Yeah, basically.
All
Yeah.
right, all right.
Yeah, that's
So they
basically
don't have an incentive to like change the price, isn't it?
that's basically the main idea of it, yeah. So
Yeah,
you can even show that like if you draw a price line above P1 on the it goes on the elastic line, then you can see your quantity is gonna fall very sharply, isn't it?
yeah,
If you do the opposite, your quantity only increases by a bit, but you're sacrificing more revenue just for a little bit more. So you're basically losing revenue
yeah.
overall. Um, in terms of game theory, I can. I did this like a long time ago, so let me try to see if I have anything on that. Can you hear that?
Hear what?
Um, hold on. I don't know if you can hear my. Let me see if you can hear this. So game theory is another way. Can you hear that? Look at interdependent
Yeah, I can, but it's a bit echoey.
reactions of rival firms. Oh, is it?
Yeah, yeah, it's a bit echoey, but I think I
We've,
can.
we've seen something like this. I'm gonna give you a better example now. Let me know if it's bad.
All right.
Okay, so let's take firms. Pull this a bit. On the left and for couldn't work. So let's understand what's going on here. Okay. So you might actually get a game like this, and you have to solve it. Right? And we have to solve for something called the Nash equilibrium. So what I've basically done here, yeah.
Yeah.
We have a player A on the left, player B at the top.
Yeah.
You might.
Sorry. In our like school, innit, they
Uh-huh.
draw the like diagram a bit differently, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's more or less same thing. But,
It should be more. Yeah, it should be still like a diagram like this.
yeah, yeah.
But it would represent the same thing. Yeah, you can send me that diagram, and if it's majorly different, then I can explain it to you.
Okay.
But yeah, so you have like a player A on the left, player B on the top, right? You might get a question where it's not player A and B. They'll put like, maybe like an actual like I don't know, like a supermarket, maybe like Asda and Tesco at the
Yeah.
top, and both of these firms can set a high price or a low price. That's their options.
Yeah.
And we're basically just trying to see how one firm's decision is going to make another firm react. And that's
Yeah.
what game theory is. And we're going to see like what's the best optimal decision for them to make.
Yeah.
So yeah, so these are just some random numbers. You would never have to create these unless you're writing an essay and you want to prove a point. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is something called a prisoner's dilemma. I don't know if they told you that.
Well, kind of, but
Yeah.
our one was basically like who would snitch or something.
Yeah.
Something like
So,
that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I get
basically
it.
like that. But you can make up the numbers, just that the numbers have to be they don't have to be similar, but one number always has to be higher than the other kind of thing. But
Yeah.
when you practice it, you'll realize what to do. Do you know what a Nash equilibrium is?
Yeah, it's the when they don't collude in it. Like
Yeah, when
what
they
is
don't.
the Nash so this one is the low price.
Yeah. So that's the Nash equilibrium here. So
Yeah.
yeah, basically when they don't collude, when no one has an incentive to cheat as well,
Yeah.
it's the best response of both firms. Okay, so if A plays a low price, right? If he plays low price,
Yeah.
then he can either get 4 million or 1 million, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But B, because A played the low price, B, he's gonna look at that and he's gonna see that he can either get 0.5 million or 1 million. So he's obviously gonna choose a low price as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
If A chooses a high price, he can either get 3 million or 0.5 million. And B is going to see that he can either get 3 million or 4 million. So he's going to choose low price. So A is
Yeah.
only going to get this much and B is going to get way more. And
Yeah.
so that's not very good for A. So he's always going to choose low price and B is always going to choose low price. That way they both get the same profit. And yeah, it's the Nash equilibrium, which is the best response of either sides.
Yeah.
So this is right. So that's basically just explained that.
Yep.
I'm gonna say a low price. And the Nash equilibrium is the point where they both play their best response, where none of them is going to deviate.
Okay, there's no incentive to deviate from here. Okay,
So,
why?
so basically saying like this basically represents like price rigidity kind of. So you can use game theory to explain that as well, like the kink demand curve where they don't change their price. This is
Yeah.
kind of like what we're seeing here, where they don't change from low price, because
Yeah, they don't
there's
have an incentive to
yeah deviate.
collude.
Yeah, they don't have incentive to collude or deviate.
Yeah.
Oh, my cousin joined. Yeah, Tahmid. Let's carry on.
Because if one of them deviates, okay, so say firm B is paying a low price, all right, then firm A is not going to so okay. So basically, if we take any point apart from 1 million, 1 million, then one of them is going to deviate, right? So if we set a high price for firm B, then firm A is going to set a low price, right? And so that's deviation. Okay, that's not a Nash equilibrium. The only Nash equilibrium where both of them don't deviate is both setting a low price. Okay, do you get it, Sajid? Of the basic then, yeah.
If there's anything else. All right, so we're talking about
Agreements to
collusion
collude for
here.
this because it can also show us the collusive level of output. Okay, because when you look at this game, you think that the best outcome is going for high price, isn't it? Both of you get 3 million. Yeah. And so game theory can also show us collusion. Okay? Firms have an incentive to collude. Okay, they want 3 million. They want 3 million. Okay? So they can make agreements to collude for this. All right. And so yeah, so the firm can make an agreement to collude for this. But what's going to but what's the risk of this? We know that there's a risk of someone cheating. Right? There's a risk of someone cheating. So let's see why. Say both of them are 3 million, 3 million. Okay, so this is the collusion level. Okay, these firms have decided to formally or informally, tacit or overt collusion. They've decided to collude together and set this payoff here, 3 million, both set a high price. Okay, and now at this collusion level, what's going to happen is that this is risky, and this is an argument against collusion. The fact that it's not sustainable because someone's going to cheat. Okay, so if firm A sets a high price, yeah, if firm A sets this high price here, then firm B, we know that they have a choice between 3 million and 4 million, don't they? And at some point, firm B might choose to cheat and go with this instead. Yeah, they're gonna go away from the collusive agreement from 3 million, and then firm B is gonna try to benefit himself and go for this low price. Yeah. Similarly with firm B. So if firm B chooses to set a high price, yeah, then firm A has a choice between 3 million and 4 million. Yeah? So they might decide to cheat and go with a low price, in which case we come to here where firm A gets 4 million and firm B gets 0.5 million. Yeah?
Yeah.
So that's why Nash equilibrium is very important, because at this Nash equilibrium level, 1 million, 1 million, no one has an incentive to cheat. Okay?
This stuff is very weird, you know. Oh,
So that's basically, did you understand that?
Yeah.
So don't worry about this. I'll
What
send
was
out.
that?
Don't worry about this stuff here. It's not really that
Oh yeah,
relevant.
yeah,
I was just waffling when I made these notes. Um,
yeah.
that's basically all you need to know for oligopolies.
Yeah.
If there's anything else that your teacher teaches you, just learn that as well. But most of the time, like, that's all you need to know. Okay. And also with like game theory, one other thing I didn't mention is that a lot of like firms who, let's say that they had a collusive agreement, like we saw, they were both getting like 3 million, 3 million.
Yeah.
If they know like how long their agreement is, and you might be wondering like why would they like deviate and just end their like contract kind of thing. A lot of like firms are sneaky where like in the last period of their like contract, they might deviate right at the end so they can get a bit more profits and then get out. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the tricky part of it. So that's what they like teach you more in uni, and there's a lot of maths behind it. Um, contestable markets, basically, this quite easy. So it's a different theory to all the market structures and based around the potential threat of competition rather than actual competition. So these are the characteristics. So when we think about contestable markets, first think about like the perfectly contestable market where there's no entry or exit barriers, which increases the threat of entry, making it contestable. There's pool of potential entrants. There's perfect information. There's incumbent firms, which are firms already in the market, and
Yeah.
they're vulnerable to hit and run competition, which is basically what we saw with like perfect competition.
Yeah. What's a surrogate firm or whatever that's called?
Surrogate firm.
Surrogate competitor or something.
Mm, not sure to be honest. Haven't
All
heard
right.
that one.
Yep.
Surrogate. I feel like I have. I don't know. Maybe I forgot. Was that what they taught you? Surrogate firm.
Yeah, they said something about surrogate competitors, but then like I just it didn't get to my head, man.
I don't think that's even in the spec to be honest. Or I don't
Oh,
so. So
all right, all
it
right.
might just be some outside knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that anywhere. Um, if a market is contestable, we are not worried about actual competition. So in truth, any market can become contestable. Um, when we're looking at monopoly at Q1, P1, this is where they will normally produce at where MC equal to MR. Problem with contestable markets, there are no entry barriers, so these profits will attract or have threats of new firms entering the market. Okay, so basically when the market is contestable, monopolists know that there's too much risk profit maximizing at MC equals MR because people come to just grab those profits in it.
Yeah.
So what they might do is that they might just decide to produce at the point where they make normal profits, AC equals AR, and that way they kind of stop the pool of new entrants because no one wants to, well, no one's gonna want to come into the market if they can't grab us some supernormal profits, isn't it?
But like if the incumbent firm decides to make normal profits, won't there be like more super normal profits to grab like elsewhere?
What do you mean?
Like if that incumbent firm isn't taking advantage of the supernormal profits, then those supernormal profits are just out there ready to get taken by another firm. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, I know what you mean, but like when the monopolist sets its price to the price competition, then that's what other people have to follow. And
Okay,
so
yeah, yeah.
joining this market would not be beneficial for a new entrant because the monopolist has all the market share, people would just go to them.
Yeah, isn't that basically limit pricing?
Yeah, basically, yeah. But
Yeah.
they're limiting entry. Alright. In truth, there aren't any real, so in reality, there isn't any really perfectly contestable markets, but there can be some very contestable ones. So there will be downward pressure, maybe not normal profit point, but still pressure on price and quantity. So contestable markets is all about the threat of entry and competition, whereas competitive markets is about actual competition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't really seen much essay questions on contestable markets, maybe like one or two, but they're not very common. To be honest, when it comes to micro, people just like to talk about like the actual normal market structures, like monopolistic and stuff like that, oligopolies. That's what they like to test you on.
Could you say that again, please?
When it comes to like these kind of essay questions around this topic, people like the examiners like to just test you on like monopolies and oligopolies and monopolistic and perfect competition. They just like to see your knowledge on that. I've seen a lot of questions where they want you to explain like the graphs and stuff that we saw.
All right.
Okay, so you can read this in your own time.
Wait, is that monopolistic or?
This one?
Yeah.
So this is a contestable market, but it's
All right. All right. Yeah.
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 All right. Okay. Have they taught you like privatization, deregulation and stuff?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. But I kind of need to go over it. So.
Okay, that's fine. So now we're looking at government intervention in markets. There's a lot of ways the governments can intervene. One way is through privatization. Do you know what it is?
Yeah, it's when a like government like state-owned company is sold off to a private
Yeah.
firm.
Yeah, basically, yeah, sort of to the private sector. And the idea is that the private sector is said to now gonna run that firm more efficiently because private sector have more of a profit motive than the government. And so they're gonna try to like reduce their costs and stuff like that and become more efficient, whereas the government is not really seen as that efficient. So the intention is to move towards more competitive outcomes, which is shown by this diagram. So price and quantity towards competitive levels. So see previously we had profit maximization at PMQM.
Yeah.
The whole point of selling it to the private sector is that they are going to become more efficient. They're going to lower their cost and hopefully lower their prices towards competitive levels where MC equals to AR, like you said, or demand equals supply, which is allocative efficiency. Okay.
So is that like one of the regulations that
Yeah, so that's one of the regulations to manage the market structure. So the government intervention in markets, basically.
yeah.
So you might get a question on that, on how like governments can intervene in markets to make it more efficient, and one way is privatization.
Yeah.
I always found this got a bit weird because like you think about it, that like if the government is gonna sell to like a private firm, then wouldn't they just want to like stick to MC equals MR because they're all about profit maximization, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, apparently this is the way it works. This is the way they teach it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really about the objective of the firm at the end of the day. So long as you just explain that this is the objective, then it makes sense.
Yeah.
And also there's some consumer surplus gain from doing this little shaded triangle. I think this diagram is called a dead weight loss diagram.
Oh, is that how like how a monopoly is a market failure?
So yeah, it's when so anytime I think anytime there's not allocated efficiencies, there's market failure. So this
Right.
this is a way to like solve it basically.
Okay.
Advantages, so it's good because it's like to increase allocative efficiency, as with more competition and greater drive for efficiency, firms will strive to produce goods and services that consumers want at high quality. So we're just basically explaining allocative efficiency. There will be a reduction in X efficiency, so there will be less waste and firms will need to drive down costs to maximize profits. So X efficiency happens at any point on the average cost curve. That means there's no waste. So before we're producing at PMQM, which is very far away from the AC curve.
Yeah.
Now because we're producing at PCQC, we're moving towards the AC curve, so there's less there's more X efficiency. Due to there being a great incentive for firms to be as efficient as possible, it may lead to dynamic efficiency over time, for example, investing and lowering prices. Government gain profits from selling the organization. That's also a big benefit because the money that the government gets from selling the organization, they can put it towards, I don't know, like solving market failure, for example, with like negative externalities or public goods, something like that. What's the disadvantage of this? So assuming that as soon as the government privatizes the industry, there's going to be many firms to enter the industry, but there may be limited competition, in which case there could be productive and allocative inefficiency.
Yeah.
Yeah. Due to this profit motive, firms that operate are not going to want to run loss-making services and goods, even if they are socially desirable. If beforehand there was a state-run natural monopoly and it was benefiting from economies of scale, then by privatizing it, you will lose those economies of scale benefits, which again leads to productive inefficiency.
You know the second point. Could
Yeah.
you like explain that, please?
So due to this profit motive, firms that operate are not going to want to run loss-making services and goods.
All right. Yeah, no, I get that.
Do you get it? So
Yeah,
like,
but the third one, if beforehand there was a
yeah.
state-run natural monopoly and it was benefiting from, how would it lose those economies of scale benefits if it becomes privatized though?
It's a good point actually. How would it lose those benefits? Oh, I think it's because you see how natural monopoly, there should only be one natural monopoly, otherwise it's gonna be like a waste of duplicate resources.
Yeah.
If you allow for more competition, then it's not really good. So you're gonna lose some economies of scale benefits.
Yeah.
What does privatization depend on? So it's kind of like evaluation points. It depends on the level of competition post privatization. The greater the competition, the more effective it will be. The level of government regulations. For example, if government regulation is tight, you may see more competitive outcomes, but if it's weak, then you may see monopolies and oligopolies post privatization. So the government still needs to regulate privatization. So if it's not strict enough, or it's not very strict, then you might see that you're not getting the efficient outcomes that you want.
Yeah.
Do you
So
think-
if it was a government run natural monopoly, yeah, and then it was sold off to the private sector, then that becomes a private natural monopoly. It
Yeah,
will
it
still
should-
get regulated by the government, isn't it?
Yeah, it should still get regulated by the government to make sure
Right.
that they're like, because the whole point of it is to increase efficiency. So the government's going to make sure that they still do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so normally you might get like a source that talks about a firm, for example, like Royal Mail.
Yeah.
Royal Mail got privatized, and so they're just going to mention it like that. They can also regulate whether firms are forced to produce services and goods. Well, I don't know about that. Government regulation may also be strict on firms having to take into account external costs, such as when private firms go for profit motives, they ignore external costs and benefits. So we're basically talking about negative and positive externalities.
Yeah.
So we know that private firms, they don't take them into account. That's the whole point of market failure. That was from year one micro. Okay, another policy or intervention is something called deregulation. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, it's when the government just stops regulating a industry or market, right?
It's not that they stop regulating it, it's that they reduce regulation in that market so that firms can move more freely.
All right. Yeah.
So the government reduced legal barriers to entry in given industries, which will incentivize more firms entering the market. Yeah, because the whole thing about competition and efficiency is that you want as many firms in the market as possible, many buyers and sellers, so that the price gets driven down. People are competing, like firms are competing more with each other, which means that consumers are like getting a wide variety of goods at lower prices, higher quality, because firms need to compete with each other in it because they're all about trying to get the most market share.
Yeah.
So by deregulating, reducing barriers to entry and exit, you're allowing more firms to come into the market and compete with each other, which will drive down prices and increase efficiency. Basically
Yeah.
making it more contestable, like we saw.
Yep.
So yeah, so it's the same graph again, yeah, because we're always trying to push towards that allocative efficient level, yeah, where supply equals demand. So what's the advantages of deregulation? So what I just said, more consumer choice, satisfying the needs of consumers. So the reason this is happening is because firms are trying to get ahead of their rivals. And so firms are gonna like produce like new innovative products that are going to try to capture the consumer's attention and at a higher quality as well.
Yeah.
There's also a good chance of productive efficiency and X efficiency, as there's incentives for firms to minimize costs and maximize profits, as well as reducing waste. Likely to be an increase in dynamic efficiency, as there's likely to be some source of profits being made, which can be reinvested over time and can be used to gain more market share. Okay, so firms, any kind of supernormal profits that the firm might make, they might use these profits to invest for the long run, cost efficiencies that will help them gain more market share.
But then, when so like after the deregulation happens, they're basically at allocative efficiency, yeah. So
Yeah.
wouldn't there be like less profits to like invest back into their company?
Yeah, there'll definitely be less profits, less than their profit maximizing
But
output.
doesn't that mean dynamic efficiency like decreases?
Yeah, dynamic efficiency.
Like it's still there by decreasing.
Yeah, it's still there, but it decreases, yeah, basically. But it's still a mentionable point. Like there's still dynamic efficiency that you can exploit
Okay.
because you can still show supernormal profits from the PCQC. Like it hits the AC curve down here, right?
Yeah.
So there will be a box here which shows supernormal profits. But as long as they're investing those profits back into the business, then that can produce dynamic efficiency and lower costs. And the more you lower your cost, the more of a profit margin you have, isn't it?
Yeah.
Disadvantages if deregulating previously there was a natural, so if you previously there was a natural monopoly and
Yeah.
you've deregulated that, then this could lead to an increase in average cost, reduction of productive efficiency, and waste as there's a duplication of natural resources. So what we basically said before, yeah, you're making a natural monopoly market more contestable. It's not a very smart idea. You only really need one like big firm to like do everything. Otherwise, having competition in that market is not going to be very efficient.
Yeah. But do you know, like even if you deregulate a natural monopoly, yeah,
Yeah.
doesn't like and because competition is undesirable in that market, yeah. Even if new firms don't enter, like wouldn't it still be bad because like the natural monopoly would like price high and like aim to profit maximize and like exploit their
So I know what you're saying because like so basically if you leave the natural like one natural monopoly alone, then they're just gonna profit maximize and stuff, right? But remember
yeah.
what we saw about natural monopolies is that they're forced by the government already to produce at the allocative efficient level.
Yeah, so if it's deregulated, they're gonna go profit maximize.
Um,
Because if they continue to operate at allocative efficiency, they're making a loss because when they were getting regulated, that loss was covered by a subsidy.
Yeah.
So they would probably profit maximize. So you can say that's a disadvantage, isn't it?
Yeah, you can, I guess so, yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. There is no guarantee there will be huge levels of competition, as you may have local monopolies or oligopolies being formed, which can abuse power by charging higher prices at lower quantities. So allocative and productive inefficiency may occur. Yeah, so just because you deregulate a market doesn't mean it's going to guarantee huge levels of competition. Maybe the incumbent firms already just become bigger and become monopolies and oligopolies. Do you get it?
Yeah. When would the government deregulate a market?
Normally they would deregulate a market if there's not enough firms in that market. If the monopolies and oligopolies have too much market share, then they will try to incentivize more competition and to try to reduce the market share of those bigger companies because they might be exploiting consumers.
Yeah.
Deregulation depends on short run versus long run outcomes because if you see oligopolies and local monopolies forming, the chances are in the long run contestability will fall. Whereas if it was contestable in the short run, there may be a failure of deregulation. The hell does that
Yeah.
mean? Oh, okay. Depends on the height of other barriers to entry, as there is no guarantee that just by reducing the legal barrier that all of a sudden new firms will enter the market to make it more contestable. There may be other barriers to entry that are very high, so this may disincentivize new firms, so less competition. Yeah. So you need to like look at it more closely, like what exact barriers are the firms reducing? Because there's a lot of barriers to entry and exit of a market, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if the government just reduces like, I don't know, the cost of a patent to produce something, or like not really having a significant barrier to entry reduction, then you can't just say that, oh, there's going to be so many firms that are going to enter the market now because the government reduced a bit of barriers. Can't really
Oh
say
yeah.
that.
So it depends on the magnitude
Yeah,
of
yeah, the magnitude of it, yeah. So the more they reduce, the higher the chances of more competition.
yeah.
There still needs to be strong government regulation to make sure local oligopolies and monopolies are not acting in an anti-competitive way. Yeah, of course. Government needs to regulate everything whenever they intervene to make sure like they need to just make sure that whatever they're trying to whatever they're intending to do, that they do it properly. Otherwise, that's going to lead to government failure, and that's not good.
Yeah. We're gonna do labor markets, right?
Yeah, we're gonna do probably we're gonna start labor markets next lesson.
All right.
We quickly finish this. Nationalization. So do you know what that is?
It's when it's like the opposite, innit? So
Yeah,
it's when a private firm gets state owned.
yeah, basically. Yeah, it's exactly
Does it
the
get
opposite of
sold off
privatization.
does it get sold off to the
Uh,
government or
yeah, I believe that the government buys it.
oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So the government buys the industry from the private sector and run it themselves.
Yeah.
That would make sense. Government can't just steal it.
Yeah.
Arguments in favor of nationalization. If we have state-run monopolies dominating the industry, then it can be argued that there's greater potential for economies of scale, leading to productive efficiency gains, low average cost and prices. Public sector will end up focusing more on service provision, whereas where governments will always look to maximize social welfare, right? So the government will try to maximize social welfare or increase allocative efficiency.
Oh, so when a when the government like nationalizes something,
Yeah.
they if it's a natural monopoly, it benefits from economies of scale, right? And
Yeah.
then once it reaches like diseconomies of scale, that's when it like
it becomes less
privatizes it,
inefficient.
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
okay,
like
okay.
it,
That makes sense.
yeah, it depends on like this, like what basically like the state of like the company and what policy might be best during the time.
Yeah.
Likely to be market failures arising from positive and negative externalities because governments are considering social welfare, including so there's less likely to be market failures because the government is in control. So they're going to try to produce at the socially optimum level.
Yeah.
Public sector can be a great vehicle for macroeconomic control. If we allow more nationalization, the government can manipulate wages to keep inflation under control. So you know the inflation target is like 2%. So the government can try to target that. They can also target the unemployment rate. Hire more workers in the public sector. So basically, the government are really good to like not just like have microeconomic impacts, but also like macroeconomic. So you can slightly mention that in your essay, so you get a lot of marks for that.
Okay.
I wouldn't recommend like talking too much about it, like using your macro diagrams and stuff like that, but you can slightly mention it in your like evaluation. That should impress the examiner.
The
Are they
public sector can be a great vehicle for.
Yeah, a great vehicle for macroeconomic control. So basically like a tool.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Um, Arguments against nationalization, risk of diseconomies of scale, because the public sector is dominating industry, there's a state-run Wait,
Yeah, makes sense.
state-run monopoly, then the company could be very big. Oh yeah, so the company's too big, risk of diseconomies of scale.
And then at that point it gets privatized, right?
Yeah, they could privatize it if they feel that the private company could run it better. They could definitely sell it off.
Yeah.
Probably a good argument to make. Or they could also deregulate as well.
Yeah.
There's a lack of incentive for state-run companies to minimize costs, with complacent and wasteful production creeping into the production process as both lead to higher costs. So we basically know that the government, they're not going to have as much of a profit motive as the private sector, are they?
Yeah, so they won't really minimize costs.
Yeah, so they might lose out some of those productive and X efficiencies.
Mm.
So yeah, we basically saw that. So there might be less dynamic efficiency with the state-run organizations because they're not going to really focus so much on profit. They're focusing more on like consumer satisfaction. Nationalization is highly expensive and a burden on the taxpayer. For example, buying assets and wages in periods of austerity can be argued whether governments can afford to run nationalized industries. So first of all, the government has to buy it, and they have to pay a lot to like actually run it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's going to take a lot out of their budget, and so that's going to impact their economy basically, and impact us because we're going to live in a period of austerity where the government is going to try to um cut like what they give out in other places, for example, like benefits and stuff like that, are going to start giving out less.
Also, on there it says it's an opportunity cost, but could you also say it's a trade-off? Like same thing, right?
Yeah. So it can, yeah, so opportunity cost, and um so in order for them to balance it, they're gonna have to trade it off, kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
So for example, they might start spending less on the NHS and cutting people's wages or something like that.
Yeah.
Lack of competition in the state if the state is dominating industry could mean higher prices due to lack of competitive drive, leading to allocative inefficiency. So it also depends on the level of competition.
Yeah.
Um,
If there's a lack of like drive and like to like innovate products and stuff, isn't that dynamic inefficiency?
yeah, kind of. If anything that will hold back long run, like lowering long run costs and efficiencies, that will be a reduction in dynamic efficiency.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's an argument between funding versus delivery of key public services because it's clear that nationalization has huge costs, but if actually the end result is that society gets better delivery of key public services, then it may be worth it. However, this is vice versa. It may not be worth it. So yeah, so if the government's objective is actually achieved, then it should be worth it. But at the end of the day, you also have to consider the cost and benefits of things. Um, so basically, like whenever you think of the government, whatever policy that they do, if the government costs are higher than the actual benefits that that they're giving to people, then that's automatically leads to government failure. Okay, because the government's not doing their job. Right? Because in reality, if the government is spending a lot, but there's a lot of allocated efficiency and everyone's satisfied, then they've done their job correctly, even if they're like making a loss.
Yeah.
You don't even need to go full nationalization if there are strong regulations of private sector industries. It could be a better way of dealing with it instead of nationalizing the entire industry. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If there's high competition in the private sector, then you don't need to worry about nationalizing. But if you're concerned, then a good regulator could be better. However, if there isn't much competition, for example, in highly concentrated markets which are not being resolved by regulations, then nationalization may be a good option.
So you're saying if there's high competition, then don't need to worry about why if there's high competition, why don't you need to worry about nationalization?
Because if there's high competition, then that's good already. Maybe you just need a good regulator instead of just like nationalizing the whole thing.
All right, yeah.
Yeah. The size and objective of private sector firms should be considered as to whether nationalization is necessary, as if the firm is large and already benefiting from EOS, then it can be argued that this benefit is better to keep rather than nationalizing, as firms may get too big and diseconomies of scale might start to come in. Also, private sector firms may have different objectives.
So if a firm is benefiting from economies of scale, then they can like price lower, and that would be like good for consumer welfare, right? So
yeah.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
How much is left? Well, oh, you don't even need to do this. This is OCR.
Oh, what does it say?
Cost benefit analysis. Do you know that?
Oh, no, I don't.
Yeah, that's not in your spec. That's why. I did AQA.
All right, yeah. So why do you have OCR stuff?
I just learned some extra stuff in it.
Oh,
At the time, I didn't realize, to be honest.
oh yeah.
You know what competition policy is?
Is it like different rules and stuff for competition or something?
Yeah, kind of. So, competition policy is like the big regulators of like firms.
Oh
And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
so like they're the main regulator of competition policy. So the Competition and Markets Authority, the CMA.
Yeah.
However, underneath them, there may be regulatory bodies who are specialized in specific industry. For example, ORR, the rail regulator, CAA, airport and airline regulator. So basically, they're looking at so there's a regulator for separate markets.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Ofgem, gas and electrics, stuff like that. In the EU, there is European Competition Commission. So we don't need to know that anymore. Aims of competition policy. So it's all about the public interest. Okay, they want to ensure that the public interest is being protected whenever it comes to seeing the competition. If firms are exploiting the public, such as with high prices, there are arguments for competition policy to be enacted. If there are monopolists and oligopolists charging much higher than their marginal cost, then competition policy will prevent this, making them lower their prices. So
Wait, what does the first one mean? If they're charging higher than the marginal cost,
it basically means
like don't they always charge higher than the marginal cost?
so it's not that they're charging higher than the marginal cost. If they're charging way higher than their marginal cost,
All
so
right, yeah,
so marginal cost is another way of saying like the cost, like how much it costs for them to produce one good, right?
yeah, one
And
extra unit
yeah,
of output.
yes. So if they're charging, so let's say it cost them to make an iPhone for like £2, but they're selling it for like £1,000,
Yeah,
then you know there's something that needs to be happening here because that firm is making way too much profit. So the competition policy might make them lower their prices to like, I don't know, like 500. Yeah.
yeah.
Any highly concentrated markets will try and be liberalized by competition policy through things like privatization or deregulation to promote competition. So highly concentrated markets means basically there's a few firms that have a lot of market share. So competition policy might come in and liberalize that market, meaning making it
More contestable.
more contestable. They may aim to ensure quality, standards, and choice, to make sure natural monopolies are regulated so there isn't monopoly outcomes in essential public services. If also a natural monopoly is being privatized, and to ensure it is successful, competition policy comes in. They
Is
may
there like any example of competition policy?
well, I think when it talks about like competition policy, it's also talking about
Government
like,
regulation?
yeah, government regulation kind of, because
Oh, okay.
I think they all
Or it's
play a
basically
part.
the things that the government could do to like encourage
Yeah,
competition.
yeah.
Okay.
But this is what competition policy, I think it's just talking about like more specifically for like specific industries kind of thing.
Hmm.
They may promote technological innovation by making sure monopoly profits are being reinvested for public interest.
Yeah. I have a question. Do you know
Yeah.
do you know the Passover testing?
The pass
If
on testing.
the Passover test, like
Yeah.
this came up while we were learning about like government regulation and like this competition stuff. It's basically the government does this like testing, and if a firm makes more than 70 million pounds in revenue or
Oh
something,
yeah.
they do something. I forgot what it was though. That's need to like
I
refresh my
think
memory.
it's I think they can set a certain percentage of profits that they can make. Something like that. They regulate it somehow.
Yeah,
Um
yeah, I forgot that.
there's
That's
there's some, I think I read some sources where like a lot of these firms, the government allows for like a certain percentage of profit that they can take for themselves.
oh yeah,
Yeah. But yeah,
okay.
the government was like there'll be some like regulations that you'll read in like the sources in exams that like you've never ever heard of. But but what the exam is trying to do is they want you to just like learn that new concept and try to apply it in like an essay.
Yeah,
But that's pretty good to be honest, because most of the information is probably going to be in the source.
yeah.
Um, so when will competition authorities intervene if there is any antitrust, for example, in collusive agreements? Don't worry about cartels. To investigate mergers, for example, in the UK, if many mergers create market share greater than 25%, the competition policy will make sure they do not act against public interest. To liberalize highly constrained markets, we know that. To monitor state aid control, for example, in the agricultural sector where subsidies are given to farmers, then competition policy will make sure that excessive subsidizing does not distort competition in other countries, firms, and industries. Okay. So specifically, we can also have monopoly regulation. I wouldn't worry about, so you can have price regulation. But so normally they don't really talk about this concept called RPI minus X. Have you ever heard of this RPI minus
Yeah,
X?
yeah, we learn it. We learn it.
Oh, you learn it, yeah.
X is the expected efficiency gains,
Mm.
and K. That's the thing. I was trying to find out what K is real quick, like yesterday, but I forgot what K is.
K represents enough profit being made to allow capital investment. So basically, so if K is negative, it means prices can be below RPI, giving enough profit to allow capital investment. But if it's plus K, it means RPI price increases on their own won't generate enough profit to sustain big capital investments. It's a bit confusing.
Yeah, I didn't really get that.
So honestly, I'll just memorize it to be honest, because it doesn't really make sense to be honest.
Yeah, screenshot that.
So effective price regulation is set at the allocatively efficient level. So you see like this line here is going through the maximum price.
Yeah, yeah.
If you set allocatively efficient, that's the best kind of price regulation you can have for a monopoly, obviously. Problems with price regulation. So like you have to think about how is the level of X and K going to be generated? Like how do they come up with
Yeah.
these numbers? And how do you know these numbers are accurate? There might be asymmetric information because you
Yeah.
need like perfect information to actually know the correct numbers. The cost to investigate firms are costly and time consuming, and there might be regulatory capture. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, it's like when the regulators they build a bond with the
Yeah,
and they become complacent, and
yeah. Good. Quality control and performance targets. For example, with trains, the number of delays there are allowed to have on a daily basis when the NHS, where GPs have to see a certain number of patients in a given hour. So having like these targets can, make the monopolies more efficient and making sure that people are getting what they want, more allocatively efficient. Problems with this is that it could lead to unintended consequences. For example, if you make a GP see a certain number of patients an hour, then maybe a patient that needs more time isn't getting that time, which is not very good, is it?
No.
And so you can't take shortcuts and make people rush. Taxing monopoly profits is another one. So that can
Yeah.
seem a good policy. Taxing would increase the cost of production, shifting marginal cost upwards, which will increase prices further, making monopoly outcomes worse.
Yep.
This links with tax evasion / avoidance and underreporting level of profit to avoid paying taxes. So these are some of the profits with taxing a monopoly because it might encourage tax evasion and tax avoidance.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the difference was between the two. I think tax avoidance is where you don't pay tax at all. And I think tax evasion is where you come up with like strategies to like game the system to avoid paying taxes.
Oh. Yeah.
I think there was a case with like Lewis Hamilton where he had like a private jet and he did like a tax evasion scheme where he went to like a different country where you don't have to pay taxes or something.
No way. Yeah. They do that.
Yeah. So less innovation, dynamic efficiency as well if you're going to tax away monopoly profits.
Yeah.
We already saw all of these, so we can have privatization, deregulation, nationalization, and we saw all of this basically.
Yeah.
So we already been through this. And that's basically it for this. We'll leave it there and we'll go through labor markets next week. Let me just quickly see labor markets.
All right.
Yeah, I need to
What games do you play?
I'm a professional Halo player.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh crap! Yeah, I've been playing Warzone and Cold War.
Yeah, I have that as well.
Do you play
Yeah.
it? You play Warzone?
Yeah, sometimes I don't. I used to grind it at the start, but now like you know how like those bare like hackers and stuff like
Oh yeah, there's
I
bare
couldn't be
tryhards as
arsed.
well. I can't lie.
Yeah, it's because
Yeah.
I play on PC as well. Like I have to match
Yeah.
these.
What are your specs?
I have a RTX 3070.
Ooh, what is it? A desktop or monitor? Sorry, desktop or
No, I built the
laptop.
PC.
Oh crap, that's really good. That's really good.
No, yeah, I
What's
had it
your
for like
CPU?
CPU. I bought quite a long time. I think it's a Ryzen 5 3600.
Oh right. Yeah.
But do you have a
I
PC?
yeah, I play on laptop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Your
it's a
laptop looks
gaming
pretty good.
laptop. Yeah, they've gone a lot. They've gone a lot like more worth it than like
Yeah, I
self-built
mean,
PCs
the
because
prices went up so high for
yeah,
PCs.
it's so high for real.
Because of COVID and that. Well, luckily I got my one before COVID, and I only recently upgraded my GPU because before I had like a AMD GPU,
Yeah.
like those Radeon ones. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah. What was it? RX what?
5700 XT.
Oh, I don't really know that one, but yeah. I
Yeah,
got RTX 3060 in my laptop.
that's sick.
Yeah, it's just really good. It was worth it.
Yeah, you must have bought it quite like not that long ago then.
Yeah, not that long ago, but like because I had bare student discount and stuff, and
Oh, how much did you
the
pay for it?
price it went from 1.3K to like 900.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Decent.
that's
That's decent.
sick. Yeah.
What's your CPU?
Ryzen 5, no, Ryzen 7,
Oh, that's it.
5800H.
Yeah, you can easily run games on that, bro.
Yeah.
Well, like how big is the screen?
15.6 inch.
Is that alright with you?
Yeah, that's calm.
Do you play with your friends in that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to like, during uni. I used to play a lot of Warzone with my friends, and now like
Oh, it's lit.
we're all a bit busy now, and
Yeah.
barely play. And I feel like it's kind of dead now as well. Like I get bored of games quite quick. Like we need a new battle royale or something new to
Yeah,
play.
for real. Yeah, man. What, now you're just chilling in it?
Yeah, I work for NHS part time.
No, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, so this is only a 30-page document, the labor markets. We should be able to do this in like 1 or 2 lessons.
No, that's fine.
Alright.
Yeah, right.
I'll send you
Um,
this as well and upload the video.
on WhatsApp.
Yep.
Okay.
Send it in the
All right.
group.
All right.
Alright, let's leave it there then. See you next week, yeah?
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum.
Thanks.